Good morning, guys. This is Tracy Pelfrey. This topic is going to be a little bit different, and let me play this first part.
So I just have a very strong sex drive. No, you don't. If that was the case, you'd slam your wife on the bed and take care of business.
Sadly, this isn't the only audio from NTCC about this subject. And sadly, this was learned from R.W. Davis, who taught and preached like this about women. I won't even just say women. That man did not treat men, women, or children as special individuals. There was just a symptom, and here's how you correct it. In this case here, if you're having trouble with lust outside of your marriage, he doesn't even address single men. You just slam your wife on the bed and take care of business. After all, it's a contractual agreement, right? And very likely he's talking to people who have known each other for a whole 5 minutes and many times weren't even interested in one another. And this is not just in Graham, but in local churches, put together by overseers, by meddlers who are trying to simulate God's will for you. They're trying to manufacture attraction. And what they're trying to do is put two people together. At the highest level, this is happening. The Keckles, trying to arrange people. It's almost like dog breeders who take different breeds of dogs and put them together to create this final product. Oh, you over here, you have this level of energy for the Lord that we can see, and this lady will match that. They don't care if you're attracted or not, naturally, organically, genuinely. Doesn't matter. It's what's good for the kingdom of the corporation. That's all that matters. Just slam her on the bed and take care of business. Oh, and if you're having trouble in your marriage, there maybe will be a class about how to give an orgasm, about orgasms. Because that's clearly what's needed. You go to the doctor, they look at a symptom. They don't look at the whole person. They don't look at your whole lifestyle. They don't put you in context of your life. It's just, here's a pill for this symptom. You're having trouble with lust, Mr. Preacher Man? Slam your wife on the bed. Take care of business. If you're a single man, have no idea what to tell you. I guess go back to the dorm with a box of tissues, and we'll see you on the other side. I should take care of everything. I'm bringing this up because I came across this clip, and I thought it buttressed the point that Adam made when he said that young lady didn't want to consummate her marriage to that one preacher in Florida. And the advice he was given by Phil Kinson, allegedly, was to just take it. This he learned from his cult leader, Davis. So you have this, you are just an entity. You are just a woman who is in an agreement with a man, and if he wants it, he's going to take it. And what's the help for the man with a lust issue? It's you clearly just need to go home and take care of business. Slam that woman on the bed. Take care of business. He's not talking about it in a playful way where healthy relationships may have, but he's dispensing just like his father-in-law. He is dispensing what to do in a crowd. He's a bully and he's a coward. and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he is one of the many contributors to lives that have been ruined because they have crossed paths with this organization for decades and decades. There have been things swept under the carpet. And all I want to do right now is say, as a woman, you're not an object. You're not a piece of property. As a man, you don't own her. And the way to show love and affection is not to put on this fake dominance and this fake headship over the woman and over the family, as has been preached and taught by this group for forever. You're not a chimpanzee or an orangutan. It just goes and grunts around the jungle and takes your woman and flings her down. Does what you need to do to satisfy whatever's going on in you. A power grab or just to take care of business. It's disgusting. As children, you are not just some byproduct that needs to be kept in line through discipline, firm love, hard love. I've watched that through the years, and that group makes me want to vomit how parents have treated their children. And Davis would come along in a class and talk about disciplining them. I heard Denton the other day. Denton, he doesn't even have a kid. He has a dog. And I'm going to cover some of that stuff. But what I'm saying right now is, if you need help, if you've been in that situation or are in that situation, I am begging you to get help. In the long term, you may get through something in the moment, but there are long-term effects. And why am I talking about this right now? What made me think of it was prior to what Adam had shared in that interview. I saw all the news. I had a video come across my recommended videos on YouTube. And it was a lawyer in Houston who's representing over 100 clients who have been harmed by Sean Diddy Combs. And there were two ladies that got up to speak. And they're from, I think, the Houston area, if I'm not mistaken. And so I want to play these right now because I just want you to have information. I just want you to know that I believe you and I support you if you or your children or you as a man have been through things. And I really want to encourage you to take the necessary steps to report people. But first, get the advocacy. First, go, as Desiree mentioned, go to a crisis center if you've been sexually or physically abused. And let's play a couple of these, and I hope it will encourage you or encourage someone who knows. Because if you know, and you have not helped someone, you're an enabler, you're an accomplice. Make no doubt about it.
And she has some important words, and I hope you'll pay close attention. I think it's important that you hear from her.
Hello, I'm Carrie Paul with the National Victim Advocate. It's not easy for any survivor to come forward. Our culture doesn't believe survivors. It blames and questions them. Instead of showing support, many choose to enable abusers. The media runs stories asking why it took so long for survivors to come forward, instead of asking what barriers exist. We also don't equip law enforcement with the ability to handle sexual assault crimes. Lack of funding translates to lack of training. We have officers in the field that don't know what to say to a rape victim, and also an alarming amount of backlogged, untested rape kits. Prosecutors are focused on what they can prove in a case, and if so, how to do that at time of trial. Advocates and staff are stretched thin with growing caseloads in the criminal justice system. Most people don't know how the criminal justice works in general. There isn't enough staff or resources to adequately explain the entire process to every victim and survivor. Our culture works against victims and survivors every day, and abusers know this. Abusers work themselves into positions of power, building a public image that is trusted and financially large enough to make people look away. Abusers are unfortunately very skilled at power and control, the foundation of abuse. They seek victims who are vulnerable, such as children, their employees, and their intimate partners, all who see a different version than the public does, all who rely on the abuser in some way. And for those that do come forward and aren't believed, face questions like, are you sure it happened that way? Were you drinking? What were you wearing? All of this creates an environment that enables abusers to continue abusing them and future victims. To the survivors that have come forward despite not being believed at some point in time, your courage is like nothing we have seen before. We thank you for coming forward for yourself and all survivors. And lastly, I want all survivors that are watching this to know we believe you and we support you. Thank you.
Reputable people here that want to provide kind of information that I think victims need to hear, witnesses need to hear, the public needs to hear. Let me introduce to you now Olivia Rivers from the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and let her visit with you a few moments about these types of cases.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Q Olivia Rivers. I am just served my 6th year as the board chair for the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. I'm also the CEO for the Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which is a local rape crisis center here in the Houston area. So thank you for being here as we address these heinous crimes. Sexual assault is not just a crime of violence against the body. It's an assault on the very essence of human dignity and safety. It shatters lives, it destroys confidence, and all too often, it leaves survivors feeling like they are voiceless, isolated, and vulnerable. The reality for many survivors is that coming forward to report their assault is one of the most difficult and daunting tasks that they will ever have to do. And for some, it may take days, months, or even years to speak up, if they ever do. The reasons for this have been mentioned, but include the fear of being disbelieved, being blamed or judged, and, of course, retaliation. The trauma of the assault itself being compounded by the trauma of the criminal justice process, where survivors must relive their experience in order to seek justice. And these feelings and fears are further exacerbated when the allegations are against prominent figures in the entertainment industry or Hollywood. Cases involving powerful figures often attract significant media attention, which can deter victims from coming forward due to fear of public exposure or scrutiny. The intense focus on these high-profile cases can make survivors feel that their personal lives are being put under a microscope, causing further emotional distress. These allegations mentioned here today, as reported, reflect deeply troubling claims that deserve thorough investigation, and no individual, regardless of their stature, is above the law or public accountability. Sadly, the statistics paint a very disturbing picture. According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. In the U.S. alone, there are approximately 463,000 victims of rape or sexual assault every year, and these numbers barely scratch the surface, as sexual violence remains one of the most underreported crimes. But the numbers that follow tell an even more troubling story. Only about 23% of sexual assaults are reported to law enforcement. Of those, just 5% lead to an arrest, and even fewer, less than 1% of reported cases, ever result in a conviction, which is a devastating gap between the crime and the justice that survivors deserve. I want to briefly focus on our state here in Texas. According to the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, 6.3 million Texans, men and women, will experience some form of violence. That's every 2 minutes someone is sexually assaulted, meaning during the course of this press conference, around 60 individuals will forever be changed by this violence. And those are just a few of the victims. Obviously, this is unacceptable. We cannot allow this cycle of silence and inaction to continue. We have to create an environment where survivors feel empowered to come forward, where they are met with empathy and respect and support, not skepticism and blame. We have to ensure that our legal system is equipped to handle these cases with the seriousness they deserve, and that survivors have access to the resources that they need beyond the legal courtroom. We have to address the root causes of this epidemic: prevention, awareness, and fostering environments where respect, consent, and safety are non-negotiable values. Additionally, support for survivors has to be holistic. They have to have access to counseling, medical services, legal advocacy, and of course, community support, regardless of whether they choose to report or not. To every survivor who has come forward, your bravery is an inspiration. To those who are still grappling with their decision, know that you are not alone and that your voice matters. Your story matters. We see you, we believe you, and we are committed to fighting for a future where sexual violence is no longer tolerated and where justice is not the exception, but the standard. Thank you.
I guess you can consider this video a sort of call to action for anyone who has any involvement on any level. I'm sorry, I've heard the stories, I've heard the preaching and teaching through the years, not just in Graham, not just by Davis, but they have created minions that are out there in the churches preaching and controlling people's lives. And from that has spawned horrible behaviors. Please help somebody and please help yourself. And if you don't want to report something or go to a crisis center by yourself, find a friend, find a loved one who will go with you.